Let's jump into some breaking news real quick. Does that sound good to you guys?
Breaking news.
As our good friend Easton Butler over on X at Easton__ Butler, Isaiah Bond will have a top 30 visit with the Green Bay Packers.
Here's a guy.
Before we look at the draft board here, gents, how do y'all feel about Isaiah Bond out of Texas? Obviously, that's Matthew Golden's teammate. Anytime you get two receivers, two edge rushers, two defensive tackles coming out in the same draft, you got to step back and go, all right, which one drew the majority of the attention, right? Which one maybe made it easier on the other one? Do you guys got any initial thoughts on Isaiah Bond before we look at the draft board here?
Of all the sub 6 foot receivers on my radar, Isaiah Bond's probably at the top of that list. I like him and Luther Burden third, and Jalen Noel would probably be my three favorite sub 6 foot guys. Isaiah Bond's grades and numbers, they don't jump off the chart or anything, but if you watch a little tape on him, he is an interesting prospect for sure. So it's kind of cool that he's on the Packers' radar.
Got the nickname of LB3, they say. Pretty cool nickname.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Mr. Bond.
Oh, Jacob.
Isaiah Bond wears number 7. Not 007, but that'd be cool. I don't know, man. 2022, played 13 games, 58 grade. Like you that, Jan. 2023, 76.3, played 14 games. Very durable. He played 2024, also 14 games with a 68.9. His best year pretty much by far was 2023 at 671 yards, averaged 13 plus, and then had 4 touchdowns. But the contested catch rate was 27.3%. He had a drop rate of 5.6, receiving grade of only 70.3, and 1.78 yards per route run. I'm just not a big fan of what I see there. He is supposed to be very fast, but fast and not furious, apparently. He graded out somewhat well the first 5 games and then kind of fell off a cliff. It started in the 70s, high 60s, 80, 67, 78, and then it's 54, 62, 71, 63, 59, 52, 48, 42, 52, 48. So it just kind of fell off a little bit of a cliff there. And I don't know where you have him on your board there, Clay, but as far as anything before the 3rd or 4th round, I would be a pass on that.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've got Isaiah Bond in the 130 spot here. And as Prince says in the chat, Bond ran a 4.34 at his pro day. When you go to the RAS card, RAS is still incomplete, but they actually have him as a 4.39 on there. So blazing fast, 5'10" and a half. It looks like 180 pounds. Got to put on about 5 pounds or else Packers Twitter will say there's no way the Packers are going to draft him. He's too small. Which is amazing how everyone said there's no way they're looking at slot receivers. They're going to go with a big receiver, and we're just meeting with Matthew Golden and some of these shorter receivers, right? Which we know they can play outside for the most part. So,
sure.
Yeah, very interesting. Isaiah Bond is in the 130 spot. All right, here's how he got there. In 2022, his PFF grade, he was the 848th graded wide receiver. That's not good, Jacob. That's not good at all. In 2023, he jumped all the way to 116. And then last year, like you said, he fell back to 318th at his position. Now, the PFF Big Board at the end of the college football season had him in the 79 spot. The consensus Big Board had him sitting at 48. The 33rd team, Kyle Krabs, has him at 62 with his initial list, and Dane Brugler had him at 94. So if you were to just go off of Kyle Krabs and Dane Brugler, they're much higher on him than we are on our board, mainly because the PFF grades are what's pulling him down. So if I had to kind of put my stamp on it between our grade and looking at, like, say, Dane Brugler at 94, I'm with you, Jacob. This kind of feels like 4th round pickish, something like that, right? Would be my guess. So
yeah, I look at, so like PFF, you said at one point he was around the 70-ish, mid 70s. Their consensus,
their big board, yes, 79th at the end of the college football season.
Okay, because he's fallen down to 109, and if you look at just the grouping where he's at, Isaiah Bond at 109, Torrey Horton 135, Pat Bryant 152, Kyle Williams 160, Tesla at 166, and Nick Nash at 168. In that pocket, he is my least desirable out of the guys I just mentioned there. I'd much rather pull the trigger on a guy like Horton, Bryant, or even a Kyle Williams or a Isaac Tesla.
Got it. Tim, anything else you'd like to add to this this breaking news here, sir, with Isaiah Bond being on the Packers' radar?
Yeah, since I'm the only one high on him, I'll I'll go ahead and agree with you guys. I'm not saying he's a first round pick or anything, but I think outside of the fourth round and beyond, I think he can do a lot worse. And I think if they're looking at a guy like this, it kind of proves your point about Jaden Reed that Bird is more than a slot receiver. And if they're looking at adding depth in that position, chances are we're going to see Reed out wide a lot more in 2025. So something to look forward to. I mean, just because it's a top 30 visit doesn't mean that we're drafting the guy. But, I respect the point that he doesn't jump off the charts or anything. But there's certainly guys that are worse than him for sure in those mid to late rounds.
It's a hell of a way to say it. There's certainly guys who are worse than him.
There's guys.
I love the positivity. Drew D says LaFleur's offense is really built around guys or wide receivers that can separate, not the big 50-50 guys. That's a fact. And it's amazing how so many people don't want to accept that. It doesn't mean you wouldn't take a big 50-50 guy, right? But if the board falls right and he can run routes and play with a little flexibility in the slot and go to Z, go to X, do all the things you need him to do, maybe run a jet sweep or two like Christian Watson did his rookie year, which he excelled at. I think it's a great point, Drew, for sure, man. And again, we just got to stop trying to put everything into one group, into one, you know what I'm talking about? Like everybody tries to compartmentalize wide receivers as well because they're under 6 feet. Well, they've got to be a slot. That's simply not true. It isn't. And that's where you got to go look at the snaps, look at the success they had, look at the contested catch like Jacob just did, and see exactly – how everything kind of falls into place, which we're going to do a really, really cool exercise. We're going to wrap up our wide receiver breakdown here in just a second. It's going to be a blast. You guys know we have already talked about trying to zero in on the wide receivers this year and like which ones really pop to us. It's easy to just go, give me Ted McMillan, give me Matthew Gold. You know what I mean? And it's cool. We're going to take that extensive search that we've done up to this point, and we're going to break it down even further right now. Is there anybody else you want to see on the big board here in terms of wide receivers since we're talking about it? And then
I would just real quick would like to add to Isaiah Bond convo. Look at his slot snaps. They're in the minority. Most of his snaps were out wide. So if you're trying to put him in that box as a slot guy, I don't think they're looking at him that way.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, anything you want to see on the board before we move on? And you guys can find this big board in our Patreon group. Just scan the QR code in the upper right, or just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. We make it accessible to anybody who's a member in there. One of the many, many perks there. Jacob, anybody you want to see here wide receiver wise while we're talking about it?
No, just to kind of put a pin in this, J. Cole says, I'm high on him 2 time. I think he meant Tim. Great 4th or 5th round